I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis spoke to the Florida American Legion Boys State on Tuesday. He touted his use of the governor's line item veto to block billions of dollars across the tenure of his term in office. He also took aim at the Biden administration over inflation. DeSantis, who was considered a possible 2024 presidential contender, has sought to paint himself as a true fiscal conservative. Amid widespread economic anxiety, Republicans are attempting to tie Democrats' high government spending priorities with the historic surge in prices. Let's listen in to the Florida governor.
18 months now, and we now have in the state of Florida the largest budget surplus that we've ever had in the history of the state. We had a budget. I mean, you guys are doing this government in terms of crafting your own. I would just say when you're looking at different authorities to give the executive, giving a line item veto is something that I would recommend. You know, they don't have it in Washington, so Congress will dump these massive spending bills on the president's desk. It's got to either sign or veto the whole thing. In Florida and some other states, they put the budget on the desk, but there's individual line items that you can cancel out. So you can sign the budget and then still veto a lot of things within the budget. And so it makes it harder for the legislature to do pork barrel spending, because if they're doing stuff that's not good for taxpayers, lands on my desk, I can X that out and still sign the entire budget. And so that's actually what we did this year. When I became governor, the most line item vetoes that had ever been done, I think, was about $800 million. 2 years ago, I did $1 billion, which was the record for Florida. Last year, I did $1.5 billion. This year, because our revenue was coming in so well, legislature spent a little more than I thought was appropriate. So we shattered our own record. We did $3.1 billion in line item vetoes. And so that money is now in our reserves, because I think if you look at what's going on in the economy right now, all the stuff that we have control over in Florida, you know, we've obviously had a good run. But when you look at what's going on with inflation, you look at what's going on with interest rates and all these other things, you know, these are huge, huge problems. I was born in the late 70s. That's the last time this country has had really high, persistent inflation. And it eats away at everybody's income. It makes it harder for people to make ends meet. It makes it harder to invest. It makes it harder to buy property and all these other things. So we're now seeing inflation that's been very, very high for really over a year now. When it started, people said, oh, the Washington tried to dismiss it. No, there's no inflation. Then they said, well, it's just transitory. Then they said, well, it'll peter out. Then they said, oh, it's Putin's fault. Now they're saying, well, we don't know what the hell we're doing. They don't know what they're doing. They're just making excuses. The reason why you have inflation there's two main reasons that have been unforced errors in Washington. The Biden administration came into power and they said, we are going to declare war on American energy production. You know, Florida, we do a lot of solar and all this stuff. You can't run an economy on windmills and solar. You need oil and gas. And they declared war on that. They made it much more difficult to produce and refine. And so that signal was sent, and that's been really negative. They also came in and printed and borrowed trillions and trillions of dollars that we didn't have, and that was not necessary to do. And so when you expand the money supply like that, of course you're going to end up getting inflation. And so now people are paying $5 a gallon for gasoline. If you look at people going to the grocery store, the bills are, you know, when they say 8.5%, it's way, way higher for things that actually matter to people. I mean, you're talking about 15, 20, 25% easy for things like groceries and other key staples of life. And so that's where we're at. So now the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates, which will slow down the economy because they're trying to tamp down inflation. I mean, what I think they need to do is say, okay, you know, we understand energy security is not only an economic issue for people, it's also a national security issue. Why do you want to go beg some of these dictatorships for energy? You want to be able to control your own destiny. And so if they could reverse course on that and really go all into domestic energy production, you know, that would be a very powerful signal. There's the chance of them doing that is basically zero, though. I don't think that that's going to happen. And so the result is this is going to be something that's likely to persist for quite some time. Now, Florida's perspective, I saw this, and I knew this was an issue, and so that's one of the reasons we did all the budget vetoes that we did. Because if the economy does slow, look, I think we're better positioned than most states to weather it. But if there is an interruption where the revenue's not coming in as strong, I'm not going to have to miss a beat on anything. Your infrastructure, done. Education, done. Law enforcement, done. Environment, done. Just take a little bit from the reserves, plug whatever holes we have, and we continue going forward, and we're not going to miss a beat. So we're proud of being able to manage properly.